Hello everyone, this is Fantastic Worlds, welcoming you back to Lovecraft Country and Secret World Interludes, where we dive deeper into the Secret World lore. Okay, so yeah, you may notice that I have changed my appearance a bit here to reflect my nature's child thing. I am the child of Gaia, and I usually refer to those beings as the Fae. Now the Fae are powerful spirits of Gaia that have a specific purpose to them. Now what that purpose is determined, of course, by their creation. We, for example, as a bee in the hive, so to speak, of Agartha, are a warrior, which means that our job to eliminate threats to the hive slash Gaia slash Agartha slash reality and do so. Now, the thing is, of course, there are other spirits. Sometimes we will intersect with them, which is one of the odd things about it, because once we're away from the humans, you'll notice that Hipster Dude loses, or any other character you're playing, loses some of their human mannerisms. They become more respectful, more, shall we say, courtly, which is one of the reasons I call it court to the Fae. Now, we're going to be starting over here at the Agartha entrance. Now, this is unlike most other Agartha entrances, which are just usually small portals hidden away nobody else can see. This one is pure, putting out pure anima energy. You can just see the size and power of this tree, the tree of life as it's called, and it's just radiating outwards in the form of these flowers into the Fae forest itself. As you can see, kind of wish I could keep that all for good, but yeah, this is known as Siren's Lake, which is the first thing you're going to see after you pop out of the Agartha portal. Quite wisely, the Draculesti are next to here because the raw energy would keep away a lot of the weaker nastiers. Hey, no reason to do that, dude. All right. Okay, so, and as you can see, there is one other inhabitant that is enjoying the lake. Now, let's deal with this, and I've been making jokes about this, but honestly, I think my reasoning holds up that this is the 14th Doctor, or, if you are deep into obscure Doctor Who lore, possibly Iris Wildthyme. Now, if you don't know who that is, do a Google search, you'll find it hilarious, but there are a whole set of Doctor Who audio-only adventures made by the company called, Big Finish. And one of them, the recurring characters, is Iris Wildthyme, another renegade time lady who has a infatuation with the Doctor. But this could go either way, as far as I'm concerned. This could be a really old version of the 14th Doctor when she gets crusty. I know I'm talking about you as if you aren't even here. Crusty and cantankerous and doesn't care as much, or it could be Iris Wildthyme, who's actually more into having a fun time than just saving the world. Kind of just does it to dress her boyfriend every now and then. But as you can see, this individual is. Yeah, we already know that. All right, she's talking to the TARDIS.
Oh, you're such a hopeless romantic. There must be so much more than that. I'm sure it was a great love, but I can't believe she was turned for no reason. Someone must have used her to get to him.
Yeah, that would be Lilith.
Romeo and Juliet sound like a light-hearted comedy.
Sigh. Yeah, sometimes.
And then you must tell me more about the Yella.
Yella? That's how you pronounce it? Oh, I'm so sorry. Yella. This is an L, not an I. It's like one. This is I. Yella. Oh, sounds better, actually. Anyways, cup of tea. Yeah, you're definitely British. It makes you a Time Lord. Anyways, let's see what we got here. Tell me about yourself, Doctor.
So you're telling me Alexander the Great left his 3 daughters here to rule the forests as singing warrior sisters? Who'd have guessed?
Yeah, actually, depending on when you're seeing this, if you're watching it in real time, you've already seen this episode. If you're watching it as per the order of the playlist, you haven't seen it yet. There'll be next episodes. We go over the origin during the Fae investigation mission of the Yella, and it is Alexander the Great's 3 daughters, although he's already dead by the time they turn into Fae. And that is by their mother's hand. And as the book will say, it is a bargain, because once you become Fae, you lose your humanity. As you can see, she can't talk. She's immortal, but she exists only to defend the forest. So that's not really a devil's bargain, but you have to decide whether or not your humanity is a thing that you want to keep enough to die for it.
The question isn't who I am, not anymore. It's who we are. The wagon and I.
Yeah, definitely Time Lord.
He is a vessel of the Vantose. He belongs to the forest spirits, and he walks, well, rolls, I suppose, around as a repository of knowledge of history and ancient languages. A four-wheeled Wikipedia, edited by actual fairies.
Okay, I kind of like that.
Everything the forest spirits ever knew is in there.
How do we get access? Seriously, I mean, you'd be able to download that into the B network.
I was chosen to be his companion, to be his conduit to the world. We complement each other. Even though we've only been together a few years, it's hard to imagine my life without him. I don't know how I was chosen or why. All I know is that I was drifting until I found him. And then everything just made sense. He's my soulmate. It's a nice feeling.
Yeah, actually, that duplicates the relationship that the bees have with the buzzing. If you think about it, Hipster Dude, when you saw him in the beginning in episode 0, was pretty much living a solitary life in a rat hole apartment in the middle of New York City. Which means that he probably also, too, was existing by drifting, just being there, occupying space, until finally a bee found him and gave him purpose. Now, in the regular series by this point, we've already speculated that there are certain lines of a lineage, certain lineages that were created by Gaia to be able to produce bees, including Hipster Dudes, which is why he was summoned. And it could be that, what is her name in this game? Anastasia here is another version of that. In other words, she was chosen because of her genetic heritage, as it were. So let's, you know what? I'm gonna do this just because. Let's see. Just give me a cat. It's much easier to deal with. I'm sure it's been very distracting for you guys to watch, so I apologize for that. All right. So, glowy cat. All right. So let's talk about the next subject. What does she know about the secret world?
The forest is the secret world at its purest.
Agreed.
Here, the walls between the known and the unknown, between myth and the mundane, between science and magic, are thin enough to see through.
Yeah, you see, the whole point of the secret world isn't the conspiracies, it's the underlying truth that lies beneath the surface. It's the magic behind the scenes that empowers things. The thing is, in this time frame in 2015, and in our world, we've become so jaded, so removed from the natural world, that magic is this far-off, obscure force that doesn't interact with our lives. I mean, used to be you gave... Oh, wait, we've seen... Okay, apparently we're interrupting again.
Well, I'm not so sure. History points to them being something completely different. The fact that they came here during the Crusades and the height of Templars' involvement can't be...
Well, my guess is they're Catholic.
Yes, I'm sure the Order was an important part of it, but that was later. I don't think...
Sorry.
Now you're just being deliberately obtuse.
Ugh. I'm getting half the conversation here.
And you'd think they'd get tired of that life, or unlife.
We are an immortal. We have to think about that ourselves.
I wonder if they believe it still. If they think there's an end. If they want it to end. We can always hope.
Yes, we can. Because yes, but the thing is that the actual magic, it used to be that we'd ask our ancestors for assistance or toss a offering to the local spirit of the well in order to bless its water when we take it, or at least not to incur its wrath for doing so. But now we just kind of assume that, our world is a dead thing. I got to apologize. Speaking of mischievous nature beings, the cat's in on the recording booth here at the moment. I can't seem to persuade her from not being part of this, so I've managed to keep her in my lap here, which is one of the reasons probably a good reason I switched to the cat pet, as it were. Alright, so next.
There's been a truce in place here, between humans and the fairy for centuries. A symbiosis, an understanding of mutual respect.
Rare that is.
The Fae folk keep to the shadows of the forest, and in return their human neighbors have given them what they need the most. faith.
Hmm.
They believe in them, and they keep the myths and legends, the songs and stories, alive from generation to generation. And now, that balance, that truce, is in danger of crumbling completely.
Which is true. We are during the end times. I did mention before that or will, if you're watching this after the fact, that stories are like the DNA of mythology. They are the spirits and such keep alive because the stories are told. And there's an entire mission called The Abandoned. Again, you've seen it or will see it. That goes over that fact and how it works on a metaphysical basis. So I'll let no.
The only person I talk to regularly is my wagon. Well, to call him mine would be a gross exaggeration.
You're his.
He's his own man.
Okay. I'm not going to comment on the nature of anyone else's relationship.
Life as his partner can be a bit lonely at times. After all, a single woman living alone in the woods, engaged in conversations with a wagon. Let's just say it's been a while since I had a date.
Oh, well, that explains one thing.
But while it may get a bit lonely, it's never boring. You should hear some of his stories. With everything I've seen, he still manages to surprise me.
It's always a story. Yes, I was going to say, okay, so the joking over, yes, there is a lot of correspondence between the wagon as a living, as you can see, it's breathing, by the way, which means this isn't a wagon, by the way, just like with the TARDIS isn't a phone booth. This is a living entity that has taken the form of a wagon that can exist in our form of reality and yet still be magical. I like how the cat's over there in the bushes. But yeah, so this is kind of an adaptation to be able to survive in our world, because as the Fae start becoming anachronistic, they start to fade, which is why there's only one Eli, and the old man who we're about to talk to at the end of this is pretty sure he's done for. But yes, these are the wards that keep her completely safe, well, hopefully completely safe, from the marauding evil, no, how do we put this? Poisoned Fae down here. Now, of course, Fae have their own darker nature, and one of them is the Padurai. Now, these forest creatures here look like, well, a parsnips upside down, with a little bit of penches. Originally were shapeshifters that could take the form of young women. Again, we'll go over that in The Abandoned, or have already, depending on your point of view. And their job was to lure the foolish into the woods and kill them, which is a way to harvest, shall we say, the foolish among humanity. But remember, there's always the truce. Nobody forces anyone to walk into those woods. In fact, take a look. I'm outside the shadows. They're not attacking me, because that's the deal. It's also the fact that, you know, I'm a lethal spirit of Gaia. But any case, going back to the Weeping Angel here, seriously, the Doctor Who vibes are huge. Okay, and where are we? Oh, there she is, right on top of her. She's on this side of the angel. They were talking about the Ulei. Now, you may notice that she has no dialogue. That is because she's mute. See, when we actually take the mission for her, the Wild Hunt one, which, by the way, is a reference to the Fae hunt in the winter, led by a death god designed to take up all in their path and hunt down which is evil, which is essentially, in this world, is kind of a continuous process of the Fae trying to purge this world of the corrupt. And she is currently trying to do so. She is, I don't know if the other two sisters are alive, but she's posted herself here to deal with several problems. Now, this is the biggest problem we have, the fungal infection that is now attacking the forest. Now, fungus is actually more dangerous than you think. I've mentioned this before, but fungus, one of the reasons we have scavengers is to eat food up before the fungus gets to it, because fungus is everywhere. You are covered in fungal spores. Everything is covered in fungal spores. And if you die and the scavengers don't get to you, what will happen is the fungus will, and then it will shoot out more spores, and then even more spores. And the birds are probably spreading it too. And then the next thing you know, it's growing and it's growing and it's growing, and nobody really wants to eat it because it's kind of terrible, and it starts to take over a zone. And there are theoretical ecological models in which fungus takes over the entire world. So, make sure if you die, your body is properly disposed of. Anyways, but she's there guarding the fungal from infecting more of the forest, the way we were discussing it, while also defending against these particular monsters here, the other types of fungus that are currently spreading the mirewood. Now, if you remember, we did this particular mission where the mirewood is this zone here full of the infected fungus. And if you remember, over here, we talked about the Paderai are infected by filth, which is one of the reasons why they've gone mad and kill crazy rather than their usual stalking job. So she is trying to contain the issues. Now, if we first see her in the mission, she's killing one of the fungal trying to get out, and she asks us telepathically for assistance. That's one of the ways I showed you when we start getting away from humans, we stop acting like humans. We actually have more in common with her than we do any of the humans we interact with. We're both immortals, we're both connected to the hive mind of Gaia, and we are both tasked with our particular purposes. Hers is to protect the forests, and ours is to protect the planet and the timeline in general. But in any case, the eldest of the Fae, however, which Mosul, we should go check out. He's the most interesting one, and I loved his investigation mission, despite it being the usual nonsense kind of things to do with investigation missions. I mean, the thing is, I love this game, but oh my god, the gameplay. By the way, did you see him? Yep, even wearing bright pink, they can blend in quite well. The Ramanai hunters are everywhere. Nobody expects the Ramanai Inquisition. Anyways, where is he? Sorry, wandering off again. But yeah, we went over the graveyard in a bit. Oh, walked right by him, did I? No, that's the lady. Oh, behind us. We gotta hit the bridge. Kind of picked this one to show that we're this sort of run motion here to show that we're kind of filled with energy. There we go. And yeah, we'll just cut over this direction. Kind of prefer using the water to the bridge itself. Now, Mosul is probably the eldest of the Fae that we interact with. Because remember, he said he was in the first age essentially an earth elemental. And over the eras, as his story is retold, he is remade, which is why in the abandoned mission, he gives us his story and the stories around of us. So the next incarnation that he has will be defined by that story, and he won't fade out of existence entirely. Now, of course, I like the fact that he's kind of like a troll sticking by the bridge. But as he points out, he doesn't ask for tolls. He gives stories away. It's kind of like a positive mimetic virus. It just makes the world a better place. Carrying it, tell me about yourself. Elemental earth being.
Much before the forest grew here, I was its soil. When all around was rock, I was the mountainside.
Living embodiment of nature. Father Green.
After much time, man returned.
He's referring to the period between ages.
The form of man for a wager. I was winner of this wager. Or perhaps the loser. My memory is leaving me.
That's one of the things about the death and rebirth cycle for immortal beings, is that our consciousness, since it continues, gathers more and more information, becomes more and more complex, and it's harder to access. We forget, was that 300 years ago or 500 years ago we did that? Was his name Alfonsac or was his name Alphonse? Was that the person that I love's long-lost great-granddaughter, or is it a complete stranger? That's one of the reasons, like I said, I think the bees eventually become the buzzing, because we simply cannot take the burden of individuality.
It dreams of escape.
It
has been held for too long inside of my form.
Mm-hmm.
Much stories must be emptied out. One for every traveler that crosses my bridge.
What's his form of death? His form of death is to take his consciousness, his living story, give it to other people as seeds for new growth. His current form is worn, no longer useful in this time period.
And I sleep under the earth to the end of time.
Or rather, the end of the age, and then he resets to the next timeline, to the next fifth age, as it were, since I think this is the end of the fourth age, if you're counting. Right, the first age is the glory one, supposedly that was created by the Seraphim, that was wiped out by Lilith and Samiel. Second one was the hellish one, where they found technology that extracted anima directly from the earth and condemned the hell dimension to its current state. Third one is a techno-organic phase, in which many of the miracle devices that we find were anima powered, but not quite with the same problems as the second age. My guess is they found a way to work off the ambient energy of the earth, basically using up the interest, not the capital, of the life force of the universe. The thing is that Nikolai Tesla, if you've heard of him, actually came up with a theory he could do that with the electrical magnetic field, and the conspiracy theories are that he created the device, and that's why he was killed. He died of pneumonia, by the way. And the device trashed so that the big oil could rule to this day. Okay, I'm not 100% sure that's wrong, now that I think of it. Let's see what he thinks of the area.
Man brought many names to the land, so I learned them.
Hello.
Asia was to me the most pleasing sound.
I think it's the language.
Dacia, I am given stories and gold. The gold I exchange for more stories.
Or maybe that was the name of the land. You know, I can actually have access to the largest database in the known history, so maybe I should check that. Unfortunately, it's too common a name. Anyways, the concept being, of course, is that he also may have non-linear memory, which we've discussed that before, in that he can remember both past, present, and future, but he is kind of trapped in the fourth dimension by his actions. In other words, he cannot take actions directly against his nature. His nature is fixed as a fae. In fact, if you think about it, our characters, the bees, are locked in our particular frames of time, and we cannot progress out of them unless we do specifically what Gaia requests of us. In other words, in our nature, we are caught in a continuous loop of death and rebirth until we complete our part in that timeline. So we are kind of a fae of time, if you think about it.
There is much curiousness then. Before the violence of Rome. For time, for much time, I leave the land.
I wonder why. Which, by the way, made me wonder, are we the Time Lords?
I travel and see more violence.
Humans.
In every direction, man upon man, man upon the land.
Okay, that one sucks. I mean, seriously, man against man at least produces compost for the soil.
I find an understanding. The men are driven by old power beneath the earth. I understand it is not man I distrust. Man acts out a brief part of a long cycle. Yes.
He's talking about the Dreamers.
Romania, Transylvania. This is how the land is called when I return. New names and new stories.
I'm thinking that means he has to come back by 1919, because Romania as a country is kind of iffy in history-wise, especially as if it's been split off from Imperial Russia, exists for a short period of time, gets absorbed by the Soviet bloc, and then, well, these days it's, last time I heard, kind of in a mess politically again. So, he probably has been back here for less than 100 years. God, that means he probably saw World War II And he's got a name and looks like, God, or the Nazis. I'm hoping he avoided the attention of the Nazis during that period.
I tell you, there is power, much power, in stories and stones.
There is, actually. We all exist in a form of narrative. Question is, can you identify what narrative you're in and your role in it?
There are powers greater still. All stories were born from the smallest pieces of these powers. They remain after a time of great violence. The stars upon the soil.
Again, with the destruction rebirth cycle. See, here's an alternate view, by the way, which I've already taken from the Kabbalistic system, of looking upon the way of, well, mythic history. You see, in majority of the, well, modern cultures and such, there's usually a golden period, Garden Eden, for example, in modern Christianity, or a golden age of harmony in the Vedaic system, or other forms of, it was so much better than, and then something got screwed up. But one of the things I like about certain forms of the Kabbalistic things is the idea that the universe before us wasn't better, but it was cruder. It has less developed concepts, less developed ideas. The flow and ebbs and cycles of nature were not set in regular rhythms, but came and went by more random intervals. It's more chaos than order. And that as ages and precedent and stories grew, those ideas came out and they branched out, became more evolved and regular, and started creating the very concepts of the world that we consider to be reality, and that this process is continuously ongoing. Again, back to the abandoned, that is what we have been doing. We are carrying forth concepts into the fifth age. We are the living repositories. We are the star stuff. Remember, we referred to that multiple times, that will set upon the soil of the next age. For all we know, the way we go back to the buzzing as bees is that when the age turns, we disintegrate as individualities, and our stories integrate with the world itself. For example, the buzzing gives us stories. Their live information are stories. And frankly, what is consciousness but the story that you're aware of that you're in?
Hidden far beneath the earth, yes. Only nothing ends.
Correct.
I have heard its echo. I have seen its ripples echo all around a changing world.
I think you and I are talking the same language. Hopefully I'm not, going too far around the bend for you guys out there.
You race to tread in the footsteps left by man. You seek the knowledge that so little time ago man had already found. Only the telling of the stories changes. The stories are the same.
And we are the players, one cycle to the next.
All the same. All of it is the truth.
And there we go. See, the secret world, long ago, was his world. Before humanity even was talking about, there was always a secret world. And the idea that the big three, the Oriochi, the Phoenicians, that all of them, all of us are the ones defining the story, no. We're just simply the players in this cycle of it. In fact, if you recall, back in, if you've seen my series on the Moons of Madness, it continues into 2046 when Oriochi attempts its next cycle of if you think about it, Samuel and Lilith have always been playing the forbidden fruit cycle over and over again, wanting more than they have and being destroyed and causing great destruction of it. They're stuck in the story. They can't even see that they're stuck in the story, but they continuously do so over and over again. But anyways, last part. Over here by the fawns. Now, the fawns themselves were a type of fae that we actually went over last section. These are infected versions. In fact, you can think of the filth over here as a virus upon the narrative of the world. In other words, it's attempting to remove the narrative, just as it's attempting to remove individuality from people, render them into a singular, violent consciousness, returning them back to the primordial state that that everything emerged from. It's essentially, how do I put this? It's putting a shrug against the creation. It's saying that everything that's ever come before has no purpose and shouldn't be protected in any fashion. I don't need that. And that brings us back to you guys. Anyways, and then we come back to here, Octavian. One of the reasons I want to come back to Octavian again, by the way, is simply because he kind of represents the difference, the splitting point between, like we do, the Fae and humanity. You see, the thing is, the Fae, us, our spirits are designed for a singular purpose, and we know that purpose defines us so much that we do not think about the why of why we're here. We don't need to justify our actions. We know who and what we are. We are a purpose sung into creation by Gaia herself in order to make the world a balanced place, to make it a place that you desire to be in. And Octavian, on the other hand, is an immortal human. He has no purpose. He can remake this cabin 1,000 times and never find it absolutely satisfactory, because he does not belong in the realms of, oh my god, this cat next to the fire is so cute. He does not belong in the immortal world. He does not belong in the secret world. He does not belong here. He needs to die, return back to the cycle of life and rebirth that humanity exists, which is one of the reasons why I find the desire for physical immortality. I mean, even in the real world, we're talking about people who are trying to upload their brains to computers or find some drug to cause continuous regeneration. Why I think ultimately they're doomed. They are completely, they are completely and utterly doomed in that fact. So maybe they should concentrate more on being a human, having a human life, fulfilling simpler human desires, and leave the immortality to the immortals. Anyways, this particular episode's been a lot of me doing some navel gazing, so I'm going to apologize if it's shall we say, been a little too much. But yeah, one of the things I do enjoy thinking about in games like this, the setting at the very least, is the idea of how to approach, how this would be like within universe. How do people put up with the fact that there are these beings? I mean, in this world, they have what's called the masquerade, where people simply aren't aware of it, because the awareness of it would drive them slowly mad. They're not ready for it. Or maybe quickly mad, depending on what side of Lovecraft you're on. But in this world, in the forest, in this Fae forest, which has existed for ages and almost timeless, with its mortal companions and inhabitants, immortal inhabitants, this world's fine. Because we lack human desires, we lack human ambitions, we lack human cruelty or human fears. We just are. And by the nature of things, everybody to thine own self be true. Anyways, this has been Fantastic World, saying farewell from Lovecraft Country and a lot of philosophy. God, I'm starting to edge on I'm vlogging here. And if you like this, like, share, subscribe. Of course, check out my regular series if you want something that's a little more on point to the narrative going on here and less on point to the themes behind it. But if you really like what I was talking about and you're seeing this playlist for the first time, the next episode in the playlist will be going more into deep with Mosul's episode called the episode with Mosul's mission called The Abandoned, in which you get deeper into the nature of narrative as the DNA of the universe. So if you want to check that out, please do. If you want to check out me just zapping werewolves and vampires and things with tentacles, check out the regular series. And of course, if you're interested in other Lovecraftian games, check out the playlist as well. Anyways, I will in fact see you next time.
You will see the dawning of a new age. To be a monarch or a beggar. To lose everything or to become a god. To stand with us or against us. The choice is yours.